Hello wise woman, welcome to my channel. I am Wanga and this is Woman Wellness, a place for every woman who wants to take back control of her life, understand her body and heal herself naturally. And if this is your first time joining, then welcome. Today we're going to be talking about why it is important for you to understand your body and your cycle better than your app, and how you can understand your body and your cycle and track it better than the app. Why is this important? Because input equals output. So what you put into the app is the feedback that you'll get. Your app is based on an algorithm. It is not based on how you feel on a day-to-day basis, or it does not track your hormonal changes throughout your cycle. So for you to get the best out of your app, you need to know exactly when your ovulation phase is, when your follicular phases, and when your luteal phase is, so that you can put that information into the app and get the best feedback for it. Your app should complement your knowledge and understanding of your body and not the other way around. The most important things that you need to understand about your menstrual cycle is: how long is your menstrual cycle? How long is your follicular phase? How long is your ovulation phase? Are you ovulating, and when is your ovulation phase? So follicular phase is the first half of your cycle, ovulation is mid-cycle, and luteal phase is after ovulation up to the day before your next period. So your period app can tell you the first thing, how long your menstrual cycle is. But for it to accurately tell you when your fertility window is and when you are ovulating, and if you ovulate, that actually depends on what you put in and what you have picked up from your bodily changes. And then for you to also know how long your follicular phase is and how long your luteal phase is also dependent on what you have come to understand your body and have put into the app. And that's how you get the best out of the app. So firstly, let's break down your menstrual cycle into 4 phases. Phase 1 is your period. Your period starts on day 1. So the first day you see blood, that's the first day of your menstrual cycle. And then you can count however long you see your menstrual cycle for, if it's 5 days, 7 days, or whatever. And then that is how long your period is. Phase 2 is your follicular phase. Now your follicular phase and your period phase are actually more of one phase, but for simplicity we break it down so that you're able to understand which phase is doing what. Your follicular phase is where your ovaries have gone to work. They're starting to make the follicles that will become, one of them will become the egg that is released at ovulation, and the rest will die back. If you have issues with PCOS, if you have issues with ovarian cysts, this is the phase that you need to focus on. Phase 3 is your ovulation phase. This is where you ovulate. So the follicles that you made in phase 2 in your follicular phase, one of those becomes mature and is released, and that is ovulation, the releasing of the egg. And phase 4 is your luteal phase, so right after ovulation to the day before your period. The 2 main hormones that govern your follicular phase are estrogen and follicle stimulating hormone. As you approach mid-cycle, then testosterone comes into play and luteinizing hormone also comes into play. And then after ovulation, progesterone takes over. So those are the main hormones. There are other hormones at play, but those are the main hormones that run the show of your menstrual cycle in these particular phases. So now you know your 4 phases and which hormones are important. Now, what are the 2 main ways that you can track your cycle better than your period app? Method number 1, cervical mucus. Let's normalize it. Everybody kind of gets icky and sticky and like, oh, we don't want to talk about that, it's discharge. But cervical mucus is important because it will tell you whether you're responding to estrogen, whether you're responding to progesterone very well, if you have any hormonal imbalances and which phase it's happening. Cervical mucus will be able to tell you this. And once you understand the patterns of your cervical mucus, you'll also be able to tell the difference when you're having a normal vaginal discharge and when you're having abnormal vaginal discharge. So how do you do this? It's simple. Just wash your hands, make sure they're nice and clean, and then take one finger, I prefer to use the middle finger, and then dab it at the entrance of your vagina. And then check your texture. Run it through your fingers like that and just see what the texture is. Now, let's go into the phases. Phase 1 of is your period, so you're not going to check it then because you're bleeding. But right after your period, then you can start checking your cervical mucus. In the first few days after your cervical mucus, in the first few days after your period, you will have a dry texture or just kind of moist, normal moist texture, nothing specific about it. As the days go by and about a week before your ovulation phase, that texture will start to get a little bit thick. It will start to get more color to it. It will start to get a little bit sticky, a little bit thick, a little bit rubbery. Then a few days before you enter your ovulation phase, it will start to actually look quite creamy. This is all normal. And then when you reach your fertile window, that texture will turn from a colored texture, whether it's white or cream, into colorless and very thin egg white texture. This tells you that you are at your most fertile, and note how many days that is for you. And then after ovulation has taken place, then that cervical mucus becomes very thick, and sometimes you might not even see any discharge at all on your underwear. This is because now progesterone makes it very thick to avoid any other sperm entering and making you pregnant again if you have conceived. So, how do we see the hormonal differences in this? Like I said, in this luteal phase, your phase 4, if you are having still a very wet texture to your cervical mucus, it means that you're not producing enough progesterone, because progesterone is supposed to thicken that cervical mucus very, very well. In the first half of your cycle, before you have ovulation, if your cervical mucus is not looking thick or creamy and is still looking watery, or you are dry, then it indicates that you may be low in estrogen. This is why women who are low in estrogen and in menopause have vaginal dryness, because they're not producing enough estrogen. So understanding your cervical mucus will help you understand your hormonal changes. And if you're not having those hormonal changes, then you'll be able to tell that through your vaginal discharge. Now, with cervical mucus, it's important to do it at the same time every day so that you have, a good baseline of what changes may be going on through the day or through the night for you. So choose one time when you want to do this, whether it's at the end of the day for you or first thing in the morning. I like to do it first thing in the morning. The second method is your basal body temperature. Checking your temperature every day. This is one of the most efficient ways to really know what is going on with your hormones and also know what's going on with your thyroid. Remember in the masterclass series of Hormones 101, I talked about thyroid health and how that is also very important for womb health. So checking your temperature will tell you about your thyroid health. It'll also quite accurately help you to figure out how long your follicular phase is, how long your luteal phase is. Because, for example, if you have a 28-day cycle and your app is telling you that you ovulate mid-cycle, but what if you actually ovulate on day 18 or day 19 of your 28-day cycle? That is very, very important information, because if you are having a long follicular phase, it means that there's trouble in the first half of your cycle and that your ovaries may not be working so well. Then you're actually able to see, even from that chart, if you're having those hormonal problems and where exactly it's happening. And it's so simple. These two methods are really so simple. All you need to do is just record your temperature on a chart. And I will link for you a chart below that you can use. And then I'll also link an exemplary chart for you to understand what a normal chart would kind of look like. And how do you do this? Well, first thing in the morning. This has to definitely be done first thing in the morning before you even get out of bed. So it's always best to have your thermometer by your bedside when you go to bed, so that the first thing you do when you wake up, before you move around, because the moment you start moving around, you're starting to generate heat and your body's going to get a little bit hotter. So you want to test your body temperature at its rested state. So first thing in the morning, before you get out of bed, you check your temperature. And the best temperatures to use are the digital ones, because they're more accurate and easier to read than the old school ones. And they're like $30-40 in Clicks or Discom. So you can look for one there. They're really, really cheap. And then you just record your temperature. You need to be getting at least 6 hours of sleep per night. Make sure that you're consistent in your bedtime and consistent in your waking up so that you get a really good standard reading of your basal body temperature. And what you'll see and what you should see on your chart is that from day one, so this is the first day, you start recording from day one, the first day of your period, and you'll just start marking as the days go by the temperature that you find. And you'll find that as you start, it's more or less on the lower side. It should be on the lower side. And you'll be able to know when it's lower or higher because of the changes that happen at ovulation. So it should be more or less on the lower side for a while, until you're about to reach ovulation. And then you'll see a sharp drop. You should see a sharp drop and then a sharp rise. It looks like this and then like that. And that big shift is when you've actually ovulated. And that is how you know that you're actually ovulating. So a BBT chart will actually tell you if you're ovulating, because you can get your period and not actually be ovulating. You can be having irregular periods and not ovulating. So this is one way for you to understand whether you're ovulating or not. And it's very important for you to ovulate. Whether you are trying to conceive or not, you need to ovulate every month. This tells us that your ovaries are working well. Then after that sharp rise, you should see a sustained higher temperature for the from ovulation until your next period. It should be high, and as soon as your period starts, that temperature should drop down again. So progesterone keeps your temperature high because the egg needs to be kept warm. It's really the progesterone levels that are keeping our body temperature at a higher phase. If you see on your chart that your second half of your cycle, which is your luteal phase, from ovulation, your luteal phase to just before your period, if you see that it is not steady, if it is up and down, up and down, up and down, that's an indication that your progesterone levels are not sufficient or are low. And women who have this problem in their luteal phase, or known as a luteal phase defect or disorders, then are the ones who tend to have lots of period problems. Prolonged period, painful periods, etc. Women who have problems in their follicular phase tend to have more fertility issues and more ovarian problems, like the cysts, like the PCOS, and also insulin regulation problems. That's it. These are the two easiest ways for you to understand your cycle better than your app, so that you can actually put that information into your app and get the best feedback from your app. Then you're able to track your cycle and know whenever there's a shift, whenever something is not happening properly, this is how you do it. And if you are going to start doing your BBT, basal body temperature chart, from the link that I put below, you're more than welcome to send that to me and I'll do a reading for you so that I can help you understand exactly what's going on in your cycle. I will put the link down below as well, how you can book me to read your basal body temperature chart for you. If you are trying to conceive and want to use these methods because they're more accurate than anything that you'll do in terms of understanding your fertility as well, then I would invite you to go and listen to season 2 of the podcast. And it talks about natural fertility, and I talk about cervical mucus and basal body temperature in the context of tracking your fertility. So if you're more interested in doing this for fertility, then I invite you to go and listen to season 2. All the episodes are very helpful, but season 2, I think it's episode 3, but I'll link it below. Then you'll be able to see exactly how to use these methods for tracking your fertility and getting pregnant. If you liked this video and found it helpful, please like and subscribe and share it with another woman that you know will benefit from this. And of course, turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next video. And until next time, take care and be well.